So how did Nico actually find Camp Jupiter? We know in the early days of the rise of the Giants, Nico played an instrumental role in helping introduce the camps to each other, since the two had a tendency to go to war whenever they did interact. The gods needed to make sure that the camps could trust one another in order to unite against Gaia and the Giants, and we know that Hera was the architect of this master plan, but she wasn't the only god working to unite the two camps. When Percy gets to Camp Jupiter with his memories wiped, he meets Nico, who introduces himself as an ambassador of Pluto, and the lying liar lies right to Percy's face about not knowing him. In the Blood of Olympus, however, we get a brief explanation regarding how Nico found the camp, but when we take a deeper dive, we actually find out that Nico was a key linchpin holding this plan together. And that's what we wanted to talk about today. In the Blood of Olympus, we see that Hades himself introduced Nico to Camp Jupiter, and he is the one who instructed Nico to introduce himself as an ambassador of Pluto. While Hera was setting her own plan in motion, Hades was working behind the scenes with the very same goal, but we believe that Hades' plan is much more layered than Hera's. We know that Hera's primary priority is her family, and in order to keep her family together, she needs to raise forces in order to stop the rise of Gaia and her army of giants. Hades, however, is much more complicated. He says he wants the same thing, but remember, Nico is no longer his only child. A huge part of the Son of Neptune was Hazel's fear that Pluto might need to return her to the underworld if he ever tracked her down or made contact with him. She had died in 1943, and Nico found her in the fields of Asphodel and decided to rescue her from the underworld and return her to life. As a daughter of Pluto, she didn't have her memories erased, and she still remembered everything about her life in New Orleans and later in Alaska. When she did return to the mortal world, however, she had a really interesting arc where she dreaded the idea of meeting her father, despite the fact that she wanted nothing more to do so than to see him in person. We know that just about every demigod either wants to meet their parent or has wanted to meet their godly parent at some point, but Hazel has some extenuating circumstances that prevent her from being able to meet Pluto. She suspected that he was deliberately ignoring her, because if he acknowledged her presence, then he would have to return her to Asphodel, so she believed that Pluto was making a deliberate effort not to notice her. The fact that Hades led Nico to camp, however, is proof that Hades was watching, and we believe that he sent Nico to Camp Jupiter in part because he knew how vital Hazel's journey would become, and he believed that the two of them would need each other. He knew Hazel was there, and he finally has the chance to do something that he's already tried to do once before. We know that Hades wanted to stop the Giants and Gaia. This is pretty much clear, but Hades has always had ulterior motives. It may not have been his primary objective, but we believe he led Nico here so he could lead Hazel here as well. And throughout the course of the Heroes of Olympus, we see just how close the two get with one another. Nico's not good at trusting people, or creating bonds with the living kind. And until he faces Cupid with Jason, or helps Reyna escort the Athena Parthenos back to camp, Hazel was the only real trusting connection that he had with a living person. And now she's in an environment where she can learn how to hone her skills. In the Mark of Athena, however, we find out that he went into Tartarus in order to find the Doors of Death, and that he was abducted by the giants Otis and Ephialtes, but it's Hazel who leads the crusade to find him. That is her primary objective in Mark of Athena, and this would not have happened if Hades had not allowed the two of them to meet. And even though we don't think Hades foresaw exactly why Nico would need Hazel, we do know that Hades saw the potential of having not just one, but two children in positions of power within both camps. We know that in The Last Olympian, he wanted to keep Percy locked in the underworld so that Nico would reach 16 and become the savior of Olympus, thus elevating him by proxy. He has always wanted respect since his brothers so rarely treat him as an equal, and several times already, he's tried to earn the respect through his children. So Hades is always working another angle to get his children into seats of power. Now, he has an advantage that neither of his brothers have. Poseidon, as far as we know, only has the one living heir, or not including Tyson, and the children of Zeus have been separated for years with no indication that they're going to join forces again in any sort of long-term capacity. Jason is one of the seven and the head of the Roman Legion, and when the quest begins, the gods know that Jason is going over to Europe in order to stop the giants. Talia, however, is one of the hunters, and hunter tradition forbids her from associating in any meaningful capacity with male demigods. So even though they might work together from time to time, Talia's vow to the hunters has become her primary obligation. We actually confirm that this is right in the Trials of Apollo. Jason went off to school while Talia remained committed to the hunt, and Jason died without ever having any meaningful adventures with his sister. Though, of course, Hades did not know that Jason was going to die so soon. Hades, however, has two massively powerful children that are getting to know one another and become closer. It's our belief that Hades was not just investing in the downfall of the giants by introducing the two camps, he was investing in the future of his own bloodline, because, after all, Hera already had the introduction covered. She had initiated her demigod exchange program already, and it was only a matter of time before the two camp leaders reunited and finally closed the gap between the two halves of the Greek and Roman sides. And Hades knew this, but Hazel still needed to be trained. We believe that he was using the rise of the giants as the outward excuse to introduce Nico to Camp Jupiter so he could take Hazel there and begin her training. And he used Gaia to mask his true long-term objectives. We already know that Nico is among the strongest demigods in existence, and Hazel is only just now beginning to see her full potential. So allowing them to work together, train together, and trust each other to grow together would be invaluable in cementing Hades as one of the most important gods in the Pantheon. We know that Hades lamented Nico back in the original series, telling him that he should have died rather than Bianca. So we know that he wants his children to be powerful and respected, like he never was. And we actually have evidence to suggest that it's working. Nico and Hazel worked together intermittently in the Heroes of Olympus series, but recently it was revealed that a sequel to The Sun and the Star was officially in the works. And we actually have a full video breaking down that entire announcement if you want to check out everything that we know about this new book, but we'll cover the basics here. The book is titled The Court of the Dead, and we know that a heavy portion of it will take place in the underworld. But we also know that Hazel is going to be a key player in the next Nico di Angelo adventure. Hades' plan is working. The two of them are working much more closely together, and as they grow, there is no telling just how powerful the two of them can become, which is exactly what Hades initially wanted for Nico and Bianca. But now he's had to adjust. We don't know how strong the two of them will be together in the Court of the Dead, but we know that individually, they are already two of the strongest known demigods on the planet, so together, there's no limit to what they might achieve. But that's our take on how Nico found Camp Jupiter, and why Hades introduced the two camps ahead of Hera's plan. But let us know what you think. We love this series, we love talking about this series, and we want to open the discussion to all of you as well. So be sure to pitch in and let us know whether you or not agree. As always, take care, my friends, take care of your siblings, and have a good one.